What's going on, everybody? This is Economic News Insights, and today we're going to talk about where you can find cheap, affordable, and efficient land for living off grid in the USA. So, we're going to go all across the US. I've done the research, I've used AI. First, we're going to talk about the things you need to know about living off grid, and then we're going to dive in and actually give you the locations using the map. Let's go ahead and get into this. So we're going to go use the AI. We've got top tips for living off grid. So make sure to choose the right location. That's why you're watching this video. But you need to research zoning laws and building codes. You can't just do water catchment or solar off grid in any place in the US. That's why most of you are watching this, right? So you need to prioritize water, okay? So prioritizing the water access, natural springs, wells, or rain catchment. That's where you actually catch the water when it rains and it goes into a tank. Or maybe you're using a well where you're actually paying someone to come out and access groundwater. So consider the climate, growing season, and proximity to supplies. This is really important. There's a lot of places in places like Arizona or New Mexico where people consider to be the best places for off-grid living, but there's not a lot of water supplies. Also, there's not a lot of growing opportunities because of the climate. It's a desert. So how are you going to have this greenhouse, or what are you going to do to offset that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about as well. So reliable water, drill for a well or rain catchment. Use filters to purify drinking water. You can take water and purify it in this day and age. You just have to have the right equipment. Make sure to have storage, emergency reserve in food containers. Some people, what they actually do is they get like a tank and then they dig a hole and they bury the tank and then they use that as like a reserve, and it's buried under the ground. And that you can also use that as a place to live in a certain situation, whether it be grid down or radiation or maybe fire damage, being bunkered down. So burying a tank in your backyard. Some of you can even do that maybe in the metropolitan areas or probably the suburban areas of big cities, but that's not really what we're looking to do, but it is an option. Now, another thing is solar. How are you going to get your power? Are you going to install solar panels with battery capacity? Are you using the Tesla systems? I mean, that's what you need to research beyond this, but you need to use energy efficient appliances. So make sure that whatever you have is actually not using a lot of energy or power. It's really easy to use energy and power when you're living on grid because you got an unlimited supply. You just pay a couple extra bucks a month, right? Consider a wind turbine or a backup generator for cloudy days. This is something you have to take into consideration if you're in a snowy climate. Maybe you're up north, Montana area or something. What are you going to do when it's snowy for, I don't know, maybe 10 days straight? How are you going to get your power? So these are all things you've got to really dial in and pay attention to as we talk about this. Then we have manage waste responsibly, okay? How are you going to do your septic? How are you going to do your toilet, okay? Are you going to do indoor, outdoor toilet? A lot of people just do outdoor shower, outdoor toilet, and then the water just kind of runs off. But, you have to check all the requirements for environmental safety. And then you have compost food scraps and use gray water for irrigation. So can you use the gray water from your shower as irrigation? That's iffy. Probably not for food, but you may consider it for plant life, vegetation, regular vegetation. That could possibly work. But as you know, food scraps can also work as fertilizers, right? Minimal waste, okay? So how are you going to be recycling as much as you possibly can without producing a lot of waste? Because if you're off grid, you might be far away from a dump site, right? Start with easy crops that grow in your own area. So growing your own crops using raised garden beds, greenhouses, or aquaponics. Aquaponics can work really good in the desert. They can also work good in greenhouses. It just depends on what we're looking for here. But remember, everything's going to be climate specific as we get into this list. Are you going to have a sustainable shelter? So what does a sustainable shelter look like? Well, if you guys have been in New Mexico, maybe you've seen some of the earth ships they have out in Taos, or the cabins, yurts, like a tent, okay? Or maybe just a tiny home, something that's energy efficient and just practical. Maybe this is a second home for you. Maybe this is just a bug out location. That's why you're watching this. So again, the main purpose here is ideas. This is an idea generator. This is something to get you thinking about the things to consider as you plan out your off-grid destination for bug out. Do you use satellite or internet or cell boosters? Do you have Faraday bags? Do you have Faraday cans? Okay. Someone was saying, oh, a Faraday can or a Faraday bag is just aluminum. Well, it's a bit more than just aluminum. I mean, if it was just aluminum, you would get one of those aluminum garbage tins and then you would just close it and then there you go. You have a Faraday can. Well, most Faraday actually is copper or silver as well. So, and it's multi-layered. It's a bit more equipped than just aluminum. You get it? And, you know, the reason people are using Faraday is because of an EMP, electromagnetic pulse attack. Keep emergency radios, okay? Solar chargers on hand. People use those walkie-talkies in some cases. And then basic plumbing. You should know basic plumbing, carpentry, and electric skills if you're going to live off-grid. I mean, it's not necessary, but if you don't know those skills, then you better know how to talk to your neighbor and barter. Practice first aid and bush craft, okay? Be prepared to troubleshoot anything yourself. You have to be a handyman if you're going to be outside doing that. And then you need to also keep in mind long-term food supplies, things that you can hold long-term, whether it be dried foods, beans, rice, wheat, you know. Store fuel, batteries, and tools. Do you have enough batteries and tools on hand? I know this is kind of going to get people into maybe hoarding. We're not trying to go that route, but we are talking about efficiency. And then join off-grid communities, local homesteaders, barter groups in the area. Okay, let's get into the actual content here. So the first one is in Texas. This here is Marfa, Texas. If we zoom out, you can see it's in the southern part of Texas near Chihuahua, Mexico, but far enough away from Mexico. It's in a place called Marfa. And around here, you're going to see lots of desert. It's a desert climate. And let me remove this right here. Let's go ahead and take the little orange guy down here to Marfa. And this is what it looks like around Marfa. This is a cheap area for land. They have decent taxes in Texas, but you could see just looking around, this is Marfa, Texas. Now we're actually moving on to Boundary County, Idaho. This is up there nearby Canada. The downside, so there's pros and cons to being up in the northern part of the United States, but in Boundary County, the benefit of being up here is you're going to have lots of greenery. Things can grow quite easy. The downside is, what about your solar? What about your power? Where are you going to get your power from? So you're going to have pros and cons. You're going to be next to water sources quite abundantly, but it does get cold up here and it will snow, and you could be snowed in for who knows how long, right? But again, lots of water, see? So there's no perfect scenario, but Boundary County, Idaho, I mean, all these are places you can find land for under $20,000. Some of them much cheaper than that, okay? Next one we're going to talk about here is Lincoln County, Nevada. You can see it's actually right there along Utah and Las Vegas, kind of border there. It's Nevada, Utah, but Vegas is just south of there. So this whole area also was known as Area 51 at some point, or it was a part of Area 51, mountainous desert. Cheap land out here, guys. Cheap, cheap land. But you can see this is kind of what the terrain looks like. You can see these mountains here. All right, not much water out here in Lincoln County, but it's an area that people are considering moving when an SHTF situation happens. Now here we are in Apache County, Arizona. I'm from Arizona. Now Apache County has some unique places because right here on the south they have more green areas. This is more forest, but then the cheap land's really around St. John's. I've seen land in St. John's for around $2,000 to $3,000 on cheapland.com, and it can even get cheaper than that. It just depends. You know, the prices are so variable, but St. John's, Concho, that whole area right there, and then as you go further north, you're up in the reservation, so take that into consideration. Not all of Apache County is available, but it's sparsely populated. Now we have San Luis Valley, Colorado. So this is San Luis County, Colorado right here. This is kind of like a desert slash, you could say desert and pines around the Rockies, kind of in that area, but mostly desert, sparsely populated, flat. and then it goes into hills. So it's very unique in Colorado because you can get, you know, plains and then you get the Rockies, and it just depends on what part of the town you want to go into or what part of the area you want. Some people would say maybe just go right up next to the foothills, right? So the foothills could be useful, maybe something around Blanca Peak or even towards the Rio Grande National Park, Rio Grande. This is again about, I would say, 2 hours southwest of Colorado Springs. Another place that's popular with people who are doing prepping, this one might be kind of ideal. We're getting more into the ideal range of what you're looking for various different reasons. I mean, no place is perfect, but this here is Douglas County, Missouri. This is southeast of Springfield. And here it does get cold, as you know. It gets cold in Missouri, but it doesn't get as cold as the north would. And there are lots of water supplies around here. So you can also get decent, I would say, wind around here. But you have to take into consideration maybe tornadoes, Tornado Alley. It's not going to be as mountainous out here in Douglas County, but it's very green. I don't know what's more important, greenery, being sparsely populated, being in a place where you can get efficient solar or batteries or rain catchment. I mean, these are the things you got to consider. But one of the things with trees is you're kind of hunkered in. You're hidden a little bit with trees. The further in you go with the trees. Now we're actually going out to Wasco County here in Oregon. This is southeast of Portland. Wasco County is a very unique terrain that you can go and explore here. They got a little bit more expensive land out here, but still they got lots of water. I've been out here in Oregon. It's beautiful. I took the Amtrak through here. It is sparsely populated. Lots of farming goes on out here. And backwoods, I tell you, this whole area is really backwoods, but it doesn't look like Oregon, right? You'd expect Oregon to be a lot greener. Well, that's Wasco County for you. So, Wasco County in Oregon. Next one, the whole state of West Virginia. The whole darn state of West Virginia. It's one of the most sparsely populated cities or states in the country, and it's very green, gets a lot of rain, does get a bit chilly in the winters, but back here, people know how to survive. I mean, West Virginia is not known for being a tech-savvy, modern place, but the state of West Virginia, oh my gosh, I went through there here recently. I went to Charleston and Morgantown. I mean, the people out there are a bit different. They're a bit different. That's just putting it lightly. Nothing wrong with that, but they would know how to survive in a situation like that. And people know how to can. They know how to make moonshine. They know how to do a lot of things in West Virginia, but tech isn't one of them, right? So Madison County out in North Carolina. North Carolina is an interesting place. You recently saw the situation with the hurricane, but this area right here, definitely off grid, hidden in the mountains out there, and it's just outside of Asheville. So you're close enough to a big city like Asheville. You're close enough to Knoxville. You're on the Tennessee-North Carolina border. Out here, it's kind of, I mean, again, things are going to grow really good out here. There's going to be plenty of water. It's backwoods, back in the country. I mean, it's far enough away from Washington, D.C., whereas West Virginia may be a little too close to Washington, D.C. for some of you. But, you know, you got to take these things into consideration. Again, no place is perfect, but this might be a little bit better opportunity than West Virginia, maybe a little bit more expensive. Now you have Humboldt County in California. A lot of people think, oh, well, I'm going to stay away from California. Yeah, but Northern California, NorCal, is not as populated as the rest of California, but you have the redwoods out here. This place does get chilly, but it's absolutely beautiful out here in the redwoods. I mean, this is just a look around the park areas, but this is outside of Eureka, California, just a beautiful thick forest. You know what grows out in Humboldt County, for those of you who are green plant connoisseurs. I'm not going to get too far into it, but Humboldt County is known for that. If you know, you know. If you don't know, it's okay. You don't need to know. But Humboldt County. Now, let's talk about some of the other outside the continental United States, the Hawaiian Islands. So the things I like about the Hawaiian Islands, number one, the Big Island, it's sparsely populated. It does have a lot of volcanoes. It does get occasional hurricanes, although hurricanes do not typically strike it. Food and plants can grow really easy. Lots of solar here. It does rain a lot. So being in a tropical place like the Big Island or maybe Maui, it's quite expensive. So the reason I'm putting this asterisk here, it is expensive out here, but it can be efficient. I'm just putting this in here as extra credit for things to consider. If you wanted cheap land on the Big Island, you would go around the volcano. I mean, that could work for a bug out situation for a couple years, right? Ocean view. This is where the cheap land is. You can see the Mauna Loa lava flow. A lot of you guys are going to complain about this, I know, because you're going to say, oh, it's expensive, or, you know, it's right along the volcano. But hey, in a bug out situation, you need a place to go for a couple weeks or months or years. I mean, assuming Mauna Loa doesn't erupt in that time frame, you can grow things out here in Ocean View and live off the land. I used to live out there. That's how I know. Wasco County, okay? Wasco County again. Okay, Fort Yukon. So Yukon, Alaska, but the whole state of Alaska. I mean, the state of Alaska has its pros and cons again. You can get cheap land. This was considered the final frontier. I mean, people have come out here to Alaska for many moons looking to get out of the grid. You guys have seen the shows on Discovery Channel, but the Yukon Territory or nearby the Yukon up here in Fort Yukon, very remote. I've gone to Alaska. It is incredibly remote, but it doesn't matter where you are in Alaska. You're going to find it, even on the Kenai Peninsula, this area right here, southeast or southwest of Anchorage. Yeah, the Kenai right here. Seems popular. People go all the way down to Homer right here, but you've got big volcanoes out here. It gets cold as heck about 7 to 8 months out of the year. Maybe consider a place like Soldotna, or maybe even down here nearby Juneau or Ketchikan. People would come down here. I mean, it just depends on what you're looking for, but the whole state of Alaska, again, pros and cons. You can grow things, live off the land. There's going to be plenty of food, but you have to learn how to live during the winter with renewable energy. But people have been doing that. I mean, just learn from people who've been frontiersmen. I mean, you got to live like a frontiersman out in Alaska. Pretty much that's off-grid living for you in the country. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you on the next one. And next you can watch why I personally am buying silver. Click here now.